So the Lyon, France mission covers southern France, the French-speaking part of Switzerland, and also Corsica, the island of Corsica. The living situations were a little bit different in each of those areas. I never went to Corsica, but I did serve in Switzerland and France. As a Chinese missionary, you can expect to stay in the big cities mostly, and you can expect in those cities to not have a car, and usually not have bikes, but that you will be on public transit a lot, and that you'll be walking a lot. I don't think I knew of a single missionary companionship that lived at a member's home. It was always we had our own apartments. Sometimes in the bigger cities, in my experience, we had 4-man apartments. And some of them, sometimes we had 2-man. You can expect in big cities to do a lot of walking, be surrounded by large crowds of people, and to be on public transit a lot. And it takes a little bit of getting used to be able to talk to someone on a metro or a bus about the gospel. That was one of the harder things for me to get a handle on, but if you're a Chinese missionary, it's just a reality that you need to get used to, that when you're on a metro, you might be on the same metro or bus for a half hour, and that's a half hour gone that you could have used to talk to people if you don't just kind of muster up that initial courage to talk to someone on public transit who probably doesn't want to talk to you. So that's something to be aware of. Be aware that if you get sent to Switzerland, things are a lot more expensive there. Prices are just like crazy in Switzerland because most people have a pretty high income, except you missionaries don't have an income, so you need to watch your spending a little more in Switzerland. There was one area that I served in that had a car. It was the small city of Vitrolles in southern France, and the reason we had a car was because the church building was located in Vitrolles, but the people that would attend that building were from like all the smaller cities surrounding it. Some of them would be an hour and a half away by car probably. So it wasn't one city that we were in charge of. It was like 20. And so if we had investigators and lessons in 2 or 3 different cities in a day, which did happen, we just kind of needed that car. In Corsica, they also had a car because there's literally 1 or 2 companionships and missionaries for the entire island. They actually opened Corsica while I was there, before it wasn't open to missionary work. To go between cities, like when you're transferred, usually you'll go by train. There was very few times when I saw when missionaries flew, like the zone leaders were flown from Bordeaux to Geneva, because that's obviously a really long trip by train. I never flew except coming into and out of the mission, but as I was there, they tried to slowly wean the mission out of cars, I think. So more and more companionships that used to have cars had those not be available anymore, and so we're using public transit. And I'm pretty sure now that it's been more than a year since I've been home, that situation has continued and that there are very few cars in the Lyon mission right now.